and welcome to this video. Now today I'm going to be reviewing this album. It is London Calling by The Clash. So yeah, this is a double album, going to be like a very long video. Like today, like I reckon like a whole like 19 tracks to go over. So yeah, I'll just get started. This was their third album, released on the 14th of December in 1979. So yeah, like they were like already like by this point like a fairly successful like punk band. Like however by this point like they wanted to like expand their sound, like to kind of like incorporate sort of like reggae like influences, sort of like rhythm and blues like influences, like and like more like accessible pop sounds as well. However, when the sessions began for this album, they had absolutely no brand new material. Like writers Joe Strummer and Mick Jones like hadn't written like any new songs like in over like a year. So like instead like they rehearsed like covers of like older songs, like to kind of like get like back into the swing of things, kind of like rebuilding like their confidence like as a band. The album was produced by a guy called Guy Stevens, like who had like previously like worked like with like the band. However, the record label CBS were like very wary of like using him because he had like a reputation like as a producer for like going like wild like in like the studio, like throwing chairs all about and like that, and like a generally just like acting like a maniac, and like actually like as well like the record company like initially didn't accept like the Clash's request like off like their next album being a double album. However, they did say okay, you can put in like a bonus and like 12-inch single, which actually became like the second disc like for the album. It's also worth noting that this was priced like the same like as a single album like at the time like when it was released. So yeah, when the album was released, like it was a fairly like commercial success. It reached number 9 in the UK charts and number 27 over like in like America. Like however, critically though, like it was hugely like acclaimed. Like right like to this day, like it is considered one of the all-time great like rock albums. Like was ranked at number 8 on Rolling Stone's 500 greatest albums of all time list. So yeah, critically this album like is like adored. So yeah, I'm now just going to show you my vinyl copy of it here. This is a reissue. What I think it says on the back here, 2013. This copy was released. So there's the very famous iconic cover picture of like the bassist like Paul Simone smashing like his like bass guitar like on stage. The back's a bit plainer, just sort of got like pictures like of the band like and the track listing, and this isn't a gatefold. Both LPs are just sort of like housed like inside here, but like they do come in like these nice sort of like printed like inner sleeves with lyrics and like sort of like like black and white pictures. Both records have like a very similar sort of label design, just very plain design there for the record labels. Okay, so now I'm going to go over each of the album's songs. I will score each track out of 10, and then those scores will be used to give us a overall percentage marking for the album. So yeah, we start off with London Calling, the title track, and yeah, just a great opener to the album. Starts off with this like real fab sort of like guitar riff like to kick things off, very recognisable, very iconic as well. Lyrically, like it's quite slight like pessimistic, sort of like with like a sort of like apocalyptic nature to it, but it is a brilliant song though, like real classic song like of its era, and like the only single like as well like issued from the album in the UK. Like it done quite well, reaching number 11 in the UK singles charts. So yeah, that was London Calling there, opening up the album in fine style. And then they follow it up with a slightly lesser song, I have to say, Brand New Cadillac, which I'm giving a 7 out of 10 to. This is like, yeah, like a cover song, like off a like 1950s sort of like rock and roll track written by a guy called Vince Taylor. Like it's short enough and like that, like it's pinned down by like a really great bass line though, but it's a little bit disappointing being like the second track. It doesn't like keep like the momentum going from the first track. Came in, they said, "Now, where's Jimmy Jazz?" I said, "He was here, but." And then there's another song which I'm not hugely fond of actually. It's Jimmy Jazz. Yeah, this so happens to be one of like the more popular tracks like on the album, but for me, yeah, I'm just not a fan of it. Lyrically, like it concerns like a sort of like lyrically it concerns like a criminal like who's like on the run from the police. Musically, it's quite well jazzy. but like it does really drag for me. Like it's very repetitious, and that like Joe Strummer sounds very bored singing this song, like personally. So yeah, not a great track there, Jimmy Jazz. A 5 out of 10. Thankfully though, the album does get a lot better after that, with the song Hateful, which I really love. A real upbeat track, a strong sense of like urgency to this one. Quite sort of like, again, like sort of rockabilly, sort of 1950s sort of throwback, like as far as like the pace of the song like is concerned. But like it does kind of like slow down like for like the chorus. Like I like the way the song is structured. Also has a really interesting sound on it as well, like in like the introduction. Like unfortunately, like that's not like repeated like throughout the song, but like just to start, like I'm not sure like what instrument it is, but it sounds really good. So yeah, a pretty good track there, Hateful. Just for me, reason why like it's not like a full 10 like is just because it isn't quite as like memorable like some of the other songs like on the album, but it's still really fantastic. I went to the market to realise my soul. And closing the first side is one of my favourites, Rudy Can't Fail, which yeah is like a real kind of gelling sort of mashup like of a whole different like sort of like influences. Sort of like we've got like sort of like the obvious one like reggae like on this one here, but there's also like a lot of like more like mainstream pop sound to it, and like soul as well. It's really great, really unique song. Lyrically, like it's like I've read like about sort of like the rude boys of like Jamaica, like sort of like rising up and like rebelling like against like the older generation who like wouldn't like accept them and that. But yeah, a really great song. Like just love like the bridge, like chorus section to it. Yeah, it's really melodic, really interesting like arrangement this track here. Yeah, brilliant classic track there. Spanish songs in Andalusia. Okay, so side 2 of the album opens up with a track called Spanish Bombs, which is yeah a really fun, quite a sort of upbeat, bouncy sounding song. Like I think, lyrically though, like it references like the Spanish Civil War, and like kind of like compares like that aspect like of like Spain's like political like history, like with its current status as a tourist hotspot. Like I think it's sung like really well, like in unison like between Mick Jones and Joe Strummer. Yeah, it's a really great track, like I think. And then that's followed up with a song called The Right Profile, which I also really love. A great sort of punchy sounding song. Like the horns like work really well like on this track. A little bit like underdeveloped lyrically, like shall I say, but the music is just so catchy, so upbeat. Like it's a real like toe tapper. The only thing like again like I would say like with this one like is like it does kind of outstay its welcome. It's about 4 minutes long, and like it doesn't really like develop like as like the song goes on. Like it kind of just like stays the same sort of like horn riff, which is a great horn riff, but it does go on a little bit personally for me. I'm all lost in the supermarket. And then we get what is probably one of my favourite songs like on the album. Certainly like I think it is a standout track, Lost in the Supermarket, which yeah is a brilliant song, really soft like musically, very different sound like for the like for the Clash, but it works so fantastically. Like lyrically, like it concerns like commercialization and like consumerism, like along with like a sense of loneliness like in like this environment. Like I'm all lost in the supermarket, I can no longer shop happily, I came in here for the special offers, a guaranteed personality. Like that's like the chorus to it. Yeah, a brilliant track, a real sort of like restrained like performance on it, but like all like the better for it. Really allows the lyrics and like the melody of the song to shine through. I think a brilliant track there, Lost in the Supermarket. Next up we get Clampdown, which is a real rocker. This is kind of like more like in tune like with their usual sort of punk stuff. Very uplifting sound to it though. Quite sort of like militaristic, sort of like marching like beat to it. Like lyrically, like it concerns like young people like rising up and like taking control like off like their like society, and that yeah, just a real like relentless rocker, and like yeah, a brilliant track though, Clampdown, fantastic stuff. You can crush us, you can bruise us, but you'll have to answer to. Next up is called Guns of Brixton, which is one of the more popular songs on the album. This was written by the bassist Paul Simone, and like lyrically, like it concerns like police brutality and like a growing like discontent like in like the London suburb, like where like they were like brought up, like Brixton. More sort of like reggae, ska sort of style to this one. For me though, it isn't a huge favourite. Like it kind of like goes on a bit, like a little bit like monotonous, like as a song personally for me.
Well, you better stop. It is the wrong boyo.
The third side of the album starts with Wrong and Boyo, which is a cover like of like an older reggae song. Like I quite like this one, but for me it doesn't work as well as like the original material like on the album. Like that's like the only thing with this. Like certainly for me, like the original songs like stand out like a lot more than like the covers what they do on here. Next song up is called Death or Glory, which is another real great like rocking song. Lyrically, this one concerns like sort of like 60s like bands like who like the Clash like did like look up to, like however like they were like kept going, like apparently like it was the line in like the Who song, which is out because I've got the t-shirt on, like I hope I die before I get old, like from my generation. Like however like the Who was still going, still making music like around this time, like quite mediocre music like it has to be like said. But yeah, a very pleasing riff to this song here, which really like powers like the chorus like along. It is a great track, I think.
I get good advice from the advertising world. Treat me nice.
And then we get another song called CocaCola, spelled with a K, well, 2 Ks actually, and like yeah, this is a little bit of filler for me. Not a great track. Like it concerns like sort of like the advertising world and like that, like and like again sort of like commercialization and that. Very underdeveloped like as a song. However, it passes really quickly, like it's about less than 2 minutes long. So yeah, like it is just like over and done with like before you know it. And then to close side 3 we get what I would say is like a real hidden gem on the album. It's called The Card Cheat, where this has more of like a Phil Spector-esque sort of like sound to this. Very big sound, very sort of pounding like piano on it. Like I love it because it is very different like from like the punk / reggae sound for most of this album. This is a song that really stands out to me. Like lyrically, like it has like themes like of gambling and like the dangers of like getting like addicted like to that. Like yeah, I think it is a real highlight on the album. And like a great sort of like successful fusion of like styles, like of like the Clash is sort of punk like attitude, like with like a very sort of lush like pop production, which yeah is a brilliant track here, The Card Cheat.
Make lovers rob everybody.
Okay, so now we are on to the final side of the album. Starts off with the song Lovers Rock, which is another very good song here. Slightly softer, slightly more like melodic and melodic. Like I think it is like quite effective. Just not a real highlight for me on the album personally, but still not a bad track. Next one up is called Four Horsemen, which is a again like another slightly more like conventional rocker, but I think it is really great. Like especially love like the verse like bridge bit where like only like comes in like once for the song, but I think it is so brilliant. Like again, like it's very like melodic. Just love the way like it goes down like the slightly different route like halfway through the song before returning to like the main sort of like theme of like the song. Yeah, a brilliant track. Like I think like very clever the way it's sort of been like constructed. This then sieges very naturally like into the song I'm Not Down. This one a more sort of funky-ish like style song, like especially like in like the guitar playing. Like Mick Jones like sings this song like as well, which is interestingly like he sings like a lot of my personal favourite songs like on like the album, such as like Lost in the Supermarket, like I'm Not Down, and like also the final song Train in Vain, which we'll get to. Yeah, just a really cool song like about being strong like after the breakup. off a relationship. Yeah, a really great track, a really underrated song, I have to say. Like any number like off these songs like on this album that could have been like issued like as singles, like it's just such a shame that like the only one like put out like in like the UK like was London Calling, because there's so many like great songs that worthy like off like single release on this album.
Revolution rock, it is a brand new rock.
And now the penultimate song is called Revolution Rock, which is another kind of like traditional like reggae cover. Like again, like it's very like faithful to like that genre, and that like I do quite like it. Like again, like the Clash performed this song very well. However, this song really drags me. It's about sort of 5 minutes long, and like it just stays like the exact same. It's very like monotonous, this song for me, but it is really good for like the first like about like 2 or 3 minutes, because it is like again very different sound like for like this band. But then we end all on like a real high note for me, Train in Vain, which is which interestingly was never meant to be on the album. Like this was like intended like as like a giveaway with the NME magazine, like it was going to be a like floppy vinyl disc sort of thing, like free with the magazine. However, that deal like fell through, and like it was shoved like at the end like off the master tapes like at like the last minute. And I think it works brilliantly like as a closer. A real sort of fun like sounding song, however lyrically a little bit darker, like again like sort of about heartbreak. Like I like also like a lot of envy as well. Mick Jones like also sings this track really well, I think. Like yeah, like, just really hooky, like the horn riff just like hooks you right in. Yeah, real catchy, pure like pop perfection, this song. So yeah, overall this album would score 88%, which I think is like a terrific score, a real like worthy album, like getting like a score like that high. So yeah, like a true classic album, like it's great, like as like a double album, like I think because there are so many different styles and like influences like playing through like on this album. And that's the thing, like I like how all the tracks are quite different, but they do have a very sort of similar spirit and like attitude to them. Yeah, there's some brilliant tracks like such as like London Calling, Rudy Can't Fail, Lost in the Supermarket, Clamp Down, Death or Glory, The Card Cheat, I'm Not Down, and Train in Vain. Just brilliant classic song like after classic song. This is really like an album where like you get to the end and like you just want to hear it like over again. Just fantastic stuff here like from The Clash, a true classic album. So yes, I would like to know what you think of this album down below, like in like the comments. Like I'm sure like we're all like very familiar with it. It is truly one of the best albums of all time. And yeah, if you have like any like requests for future album reviews, please do also leave them down below in the comments, and I will see you all next time for the next video. Goodbye.